It's an honor to be here, and I'm also happy to see a couple of familiar faces, and also happy to meet new people and to see where new collaborations might arise from attending this conference. So my talk is about hybrid intelligence in negotiation processes. I remember the first conference that I ever attended as a PhD student. I was so nervous, unbelievable, and it was in San Diego in a resort. And it was, they had these open sliding windows. And just before I wanted to start, in walks a seagull. Okay, so I didn't know what to do. So I just said, well, please welcome, take a seat. And everyone laughed. And then I felt relieved. Okay, I can do this presentation. To some extent is, stage fever never goes away. And I think it's good because it is an honor to talk to people. You want to do well. So the message that I would like to bring is how you can move from artificial intelligence to hybrid intelligence. And that basically comes from a vision that is shared by many researchers here in the Netherlands, for which we set up a huge hybrid intelligence center. So if you'd like to know more, then please feel free to approach us as well on that. With this vision that if you look at AI, there are so many benefits or potential benefits of AI. And on the other hand, there are also loads of misuse and side effects of AI that are not so pleasant. You see some of those listed here on the slide, and I think you're all familiar with them. So how can we go to a situation where you focus on the benefits and get rid of the...
You mentioned the Zoom is way too low.
Well, that's of course a huge challenge, but we think that the most important element towards that road
the sound of the room is good. Sound is good, but
which values, societal values,
low,
individual values. And how to do that, of course, remains a challenge for also the future. So still a lot of work to be done. But by doing that, we create something which is a hybrid form of intelligence. And so for those of you, and I already know met Claudia this morning, that's find inclusivity, an important aspect in life and in work. That's where this also comes from. How do we get all the different types of intelligence? How do we get everyone on board that would like to be empowered by artificial intelligence? So with this idea, we are basically going for something which we call hybrid intelligence, and where we would like to show that you can have a form of AI where people are in what is called meaningful human control, and which boosts their intelligence, which augments human intellect, so to say. Now, to give a bit of an example, that's an interesting point always about a new field, right? You first give examples from old fields, and once it's established, the examples go the other way around. But this is an example from the old. You see on the right side, you see a horse cutting a cow from a herd, so separating the cow from the herd. Now, if you look closely at that picture, you see the reins are loose. So the only thing that the rider has to do is stay on. That's very important at that point. You see his legs are widespread. If he doesn't do, he will fall off. The cow jumps back and forth so quickly, there is no way that at that speed you can still direct the horse with your legs and reins to make the appropriate moves to separate the cow from the herd. So you have to release the activity to the horse. So the horse in that sense is at that moment in the lead. Still, there is meaningful human control. You see the eyes of the human is on the cow, and whenever the human thinks, okay, we're done with this, he can give a signal to the horse, we're done, and we step out of it and we do something else. They have to learn this from each other. There's no way that you can do this in one go. And that's another aspect that I'd like to emphasize. The horse has to learn what it has to do, and the human has to learn also how to communicate with the horse and how to stay on. So that's a mutual learning process. In a sense, it's a co-evolution, and we're looking for a co-evolution between human and artificial intelligence to reach us to something where we can do things that we are currently not even dreaming of, but which hopefully help us save the world. So, okay, now that was highly dramatic. Let's go to something more day-to-day. I spent about, say, the last 20 years or so on negotiation, on both negotiation support systems and also on automated negotiation. And I think that's a key field where you can see the benefits of working together with artificial intelligence. So negotiation is, of course, a process that we have in all aspects of our lives. So, could be an inheritance, as you see basically depicted here. Could be mergers, it could be business contracts, could be forming a new consortium in research and seeing who gets what of the money if we get the grant. Well, you're all familiar with those kind of things. But, negotiation is apparently rather difficult for people. First of all, they leave money on the table, which means that there are suboptimal outcomes for both. And people are, affected with what is called bounded rationality. And so basically the outcome space is too much, so you do a kind of a heuristic guess, which is actually an AI term in itself. Anyway, this is something where computers can easily help. So that's why I have a happy computer sitting to the next of that. On the other hand, there are also aspects of negotiation that are difficult for humans, but where it's also still really a challenge to get to help people in doing that. So one of the things is that people are slow in discovering what it is that they actually want. So this process is called a constructive process. You cannot think up immediately what are the aspects that you find important in a negotiation, say, for example, about a house or a merger or anything, unless, of course, you've done that many times. So, but as you go along and as you talk about it with others and people say something to you, you realize, for a house, maybe it's not enough to just think about the price. Maybe it's also important to think about, is the ground not poisoned? Should there be a check on that? What kind of repair should be done? When is the transition date? And so on and so on. And once you start thinking, you actually get to way more issues that you can negotiate about. The other aspect is satisficing. So what people do is you have some idea, it pops in your mind, so this beautiful associative mind that we have. And then once you have that thought, you start rationalizing that it's actually a good idea. Doesn't mean that it was, but you try to find reasons to show that it is. Third aspect is positioning bargaining. So people just start making a first claim. So if I want to buy your house, I'll just say something like, 300,000. And then we take it from there. Where actually, that's not a good strategy. So you can read much more about it. I won't go over all of them. But one aspect in here is also rather frustrating for me personally. I've been working, as I said, for quite a long time on it. We can show it's easy to, with the help of AI, outperform humans in negotiation. You really get out better deals, not just for you, but also for the other party. And still, if you look around you, it's not uptaken yet, really, by business and industry. Now, why is that? It has to do with this self-reinforcement aspect. People are proud of the outcome. Whether or not it's a good outcome doesn't matter. They fought hard for it, and therefore they reached the conclusion, and therefore they think they did well in most of the cases. And then, of course, there's the usual, the laziness in preparation, emotions, how they affect your behavior during a negotiation. All of these things are challenging, and all of these are aspects where we still struggle for having an input from AI that actually helps us in the scene. So I can say a lot more on it, but I won't for today. Basically, that kind of SWOT analysis that we did in 2007 gave us this picture that, of course, on the left-hand side, you see a human understands natural language, recognizes emotions, has emotions, and has some general knowledge about the world. That is good for the negotiation. On the other hand, if you look at negotiation support systems, they can do the calculation way faster, can keep an overview of what we have done so far, how far we progressed in coming together, stays calm, and has a wealth of negotiation knowledge that is embedded into these systems. So how can we combine the strengths of the machine and human? And that's, of course, a notion of hybrid intelligence. And that was a project that I started then. It's called the Pocket Negotiator Project. And if you like to know more on it, you'll see a couple of slides where you'll find links to the websites to find more. So if you do an analysis of that in terms of different types of intelligence, then you see here depicted on the left and the right some dices where I put together how much is done by the human and can be done by the human and how much can be done by AI. And you see here that it says symbolic AI. And later on, of course, we'll have more interesting aspects to join because, of course, the large language models and foundational models coming with deep learning that bring also sub-symbolic logic, sub-symbolic AI to the front. But you see here these 4 phases. First is the private preparation, where you think about what the negotiation is all about. Then you start thinking on how to first meet the other party, to get to know each other a bit better, where you check whether or not your ideas on what the negotiation is all about, like the domain, is correct, whether your idea of what the other one wants or needs from the negotiation is correct, etc. And you build, of course, a relationship. Then you get into the phase which we call bidding, so exchanging bids back and forth, where you have to think about what strategy to use, what is the next bid, how good is the bid that I'm making for the other, how good is the bid that the other one makes for me, and in the end, if you're successful, you want to close the negotiation with a contract, good relationships for enacting the contract, and you have some time for reflection and how well we did. Well, as you see, in 2007, a lot was still open territory for artificial intelligence, a real challenge. So what we said about was using a dual approach. On the one hand, I started immediately building a negotiation support system, really focusing on the interaction between humans and the AI system. And on the other hand, I needed a platform for investigating what good negotiation strategies would be, to look for models that could help me learn about the opponent preferences, to discover strategies, to explore the whole field of negotiation aspects of it. So yeah, this is where you can find more information. The site that you see here under here is currently open, but because of course security reasons, university asked me to close it down if it's not immediately used. So if you want to use it, then send me an email and we'll set something up and you can also use it. So this is a picture of the negotiation support system. I'll get back to that in a minute. But first I want to go a bit more into the other side of the story, which is a platform called Genius Web, where we set it up in such a way that you can have secure negotiations that's independent of programming languages, and where the humans on different servers have their own negotiating agents. They have the different profiles where that they need for the negotiation, and where the run server basically protects that information is not shared other than the information really meant to be shared, so the bits. Now, with that, we focused on how good is the outcome of the negotiation. And for those of you familiar with no such notions, you see the Pareto optimal frontier here. You see things like Nash products, Nash bargaining solutions are there, and there are some other Kalais, Morodinsky, etc. So if you only focus on the outcome, it doesn't bring you all the way. You also need to focus on the process. So what are the steps made during the negotiation? But I don't have time to go into that story. So with that, I want to go one back. With that outcome analysis and all the strategies that we developed, also in a competition that I'll come back to, I'd like to go back to the negotiation support system and give you a little bit of a demonstration. Now, of course, swapping then always tricky, and it might mean that the system would fail, but it's not. It's okay. So here you see a negotiation about a job contract. It has a number of issues. Probably it's a bit small to read, but the issues are here on the left-hand side. Things like, can I have a lease car? Do I get a permanent contract? Career development opportunities. And you can do the usual by, clicking on it and selecting another aspect to bid. And you can enter all that by then clicking here on enter bid. But you also get these days, since my last experiment with it, you already immediately get a recommendation. And that recommendation is based on your own profile, as you set it up within the system, and on an estimated profile of the other side. That estimation is really a point where you also do hybrid intelligence. So you ask humans to think about the opponent, and together you form already a picture of what the other party wants. And you use that to set up the utility profile of the other agent. Now, during the negotiation, you can learn from each other. So there's also dynamic learning involved, of course, which would adapt the model underneath these utilities, and it would adjust the profile as you go along. But anyway, you can play in it in different ways. I've set it now to a mode in which your opponent is just also an agent, so makes it a bit easier. So if I enter a bid, I immediately get a counter bid from the other party. And I can see up here how good something is for me and how good something is for the other. Now, this bid here is of course not so good for me, but good for the other. And I immediately also get a new recommendation, which is again good for me and not so good for the other. And you can basically go on in this way until you reach an interesting outcome. Right? You can see that going on. Well, there's another way that you can do that and say, I want to construct a different bid, so I can do that in this way, but I can also click here. I say I want to make a different type of bid. Now, we did this deliberately on the Pareto optimal frontier to ensure that people don't leave money on the table, right? So with this kind of help, we hope that, of course, people will do better during the negotiation. New features are that you can let the bot finish it for you, but I won't go into that either today. Right. Now, pick it up here. So, of course, we set up an experiment on that, balanced in getting support. I think the industrial design students made it clear to me that my way of interfacing is not perfect. I know that they're just as intelligent as the others, so that they don't get this is my fault and not theirs. So, more work to be done. But still, also for them, it helps to improve their outcomes. In terms of Pareto optimality, you see that there is a significant difference in outcome per group, both in, say, support and no support, which is of course not so surprising. This is this gap, but also in the starting conditions, under the different starting conditions. Now, I did my best to create all these support elements. What of these support elements were actually used? And to my frustration, they didn't use any of the suggestions I used to give them. And that's why in the current system, as I just displayed it to you, I'll give them the recommendation anyway. Whether or not they found a button to ask for a suggestion, I'll give my suggestion immediately to see if that would help. In terms of clicking on the Pareto, yes, they found that option very neat. And if you look at the Pareto optimality, then it could have been higher if they really kept on working with the suggestions or are looking for a good bit on the Pareto optimal frontier, but they also came up with other bits. So things for us that worked were this. This is this clicking on this Pareto optimal frontier. This button you no longer saw in our demonstration. And this one, I have no clue whether or not they used it. So if I want to analyze that, I'll have to do something with eye trackers and so on to see whether or not that actually makes a difference or not. I don't know. And if you have an idea or know better how to test that, I'm happy to listen to you. Over the time then, it's now say 10 years later, 2017, we did another SWOT analysis and we published a research agenda on that. And the main takeaways is that, this domain knowledge and preference elicitation is really still very much a challenge for negotiation. The long-term perspective of negotiators is completely still out of focus in the negotiation literature or in the computer-supported negotiation literature, meaning that, hey, we negotiate more often with each other, we want to build a trust relationship and not just win from humans, which is a kind of challenge that some of my colleagues seem to adopt. User trust and adaptation at that point was also still very much a problem. And of course, people designed strategies, but these strategies, they typically were almost static in the sense that they learned during a negotiation, but not in between sessions. So they didn't learn over time from different negotiators, different strategies that these might play. So at that time, my estimation was basically that in terms of the domain analysis in the joint exploration, nothing much changed, as same in the private preparation. But you see a little bit changing here in the closing aspect, in the sense of it was way easier to also automatically draw up the contract, reflect a bit on how well that was going, and of course in terms of the bidding strategies. By that time, it became also really interesting to say, now we want to learn more about how, for example, reinforcement learning can help us learn between sessions in negotiation. Now, as a third angle that I didn't say earlier, is we have started up a negotiation competition, the ENIC competition, and it's been run since 2008, 2010, I think. As a challenge for the community to not just say, I think I'm the best, but to let me prove it against your agents, right? And there, last couple of years, we set them up with the opportunity also to learn between sessions. And here you see a couple of agents that were then made the finals. And you see different criteria for analyzing that. So this is the utility of the agent itself, that it's received on average. Can you see it, sir? Okay. Utility that the other one achieved, also interesting, because you see also here, for example, in this winner, he got the highest individual average utility, but for the other one, it's also pretty good. And that's the main message, I think, that you can learn from negotiation. Any kind of complex negotiation typically has some win-win aspects in there. So if you do it well, you offer something that the other one also likes to say yes to, and that increases their utility. Then, of course, there you see also a difference. If you focus on making the other one happy, then yes, they get a maybe even higher utility, but you're not doing that bad yourself either. Here you see in terms of Nash product, what came out. So this was the best Nash product that was achieved by that agent. Completely different agent again. And that agent also had the shortest distance to what's called social welfare, which is, now, roughly speaking, say the sum of the utilities of both agents, whereas this is a product of the utilities of the agents on average. So, right, it's all over the place. And we have never basically had an agent win again in the next year if they won last year. So it's a really interesting and challenging domain. And furthermore, when we started analyzing the learning effect, did it really work? Did people learn, did these agents learn something useful during a negotiation? So we set up a situation where we used all the agents in the same way during both types, but in some sessions we suppressed their learning ability. So we just reset them every time we run a new session. And then compared their performance when they played with learning enabled and when they played with learning disabled. Now, interesting to see, you would expect that all the learning agents would be on the right lower side because that would improve their rank. And it's not. You see quite some agents that are actually doing worse when they start learning. So there's really still a challenge here for you to join us in. On the other hand, you also see that basically the top ranking agents, the ones that won the competition, all were learning agents. So in the end, none of the non-learning agents made the top 10 in the competition. So of course, now I think you understand that there's a lot to still do. But then, of course, somewhere in between, the large language models came on the scene. And we did another SWOT analysis together to see what it would bring us. So I pick up the research agenda from 2017. You see here the same elements coming back up, and what opportunities do large language models offer us here. Now, in particular, there are also some interesting new players on the scene. There's the negotiator, there's the Llama model from Meta, there's of course ChatGPT, and they all offer some bidding support. Do have a look at it, and will not take any responsibility of giving you a suggestion of what to bid. And of course that's scary to do, but we do. So the whole aspect of negotiation strategies is not in there. On the other hand, we do see that people use it and trust it. So they trust whatever is being said to them. That, of course, is a dual sword, right? It's good because finally people are starting to use AI for these kind of things. On the other hand, if it's non-dependable, then it's also a problem. So if we look at the same picture again, then you see that suddenly here, because of the large language model and typically the domain modeling aspects, we see an improve of the aspect that AI can do for them. So there's a mistake here. That should be AI in general now and not just symbolic AI. And to go to my basically all but last slide is this analysis of it. So if you look at, well, it's of course a human assessment. So us as experts in automating negotiation support systems, then we see that the main problem that we still face is situation awareness. The LLMs have no idea what kind of situation you are. So their advice is always generic at that in that sense, right? You have to be very well versed in prompting to get them the right information about the situation to get something useful out of it. But hey, that we can maybe do with other forms of AI, right? So we do see opportunities to get that as well. Understanding the human factors in terms of nerves, in terms of, the power of the negotiator, the interrelationships between people. Well, for that we still really need a human to attack that. If you look at the old-fashioned, say, symbolic AI, well, at least it's explainable. That helps. It can help also to give the negotiation overview. Well, you saw that in the presentation that I gave. In trust and adaptation, well, weak spot. And in negotiation strategies, pretty okay. But here we see also that reinforcement learning can help, but not so much from the other aspects. Now, in terms of the LLMs, we see the trust and adaptation really coming up, and we hope to raise this bar. And with respect to the overview and the explainability, we think that's a minor point in that. So this is our idea of what currently the state of the art might achieve, and where, of course, also the challenges are. So in our ideas, the way forward is to use LLMs and other foundational models for improving usability of these negotiation support systems. You need something like reinforcement learning for the solidity of the strategies that you offer to people. And you need symbolic AI for explainability and causal learning. And that means, of course, I should have said here, there's also the human intelligence needed for situation awareness and, let's say, the human factors aspect. And that means that for us, indeed, make this combination of different types of intelligence in a hybrid way. So, yeah, rethink hybrid intelligence is the way forward. Thank you.
Catholijn Jonker.